Hey everyone, Steve here. It's been a while, so thought I'd make a work in progress on a Gouf Custom. This is a kit I had prepped earlier this year for the Chaos group build, but unfortunately I did not finish it. And over this weekend I developed this honeycomb hexagon pattern for a mask, as you can see here, which is quite small. I'm going to link down in the description to Plamo masks on Facebook, where you'll be able to actually purchase this mask in the future once it becomes ready. And what I'm doing now is actually evaluating it and trying to figure out what size works best for master grade and about how much you're going to need to be able to cover an entire kit. Now this is awesome because I had saved this material here back in the spring to actually do something very similar to what I'm about to do on this kit, and this is create like a honeycomb pattern over the kit. And this would have been very difficult to do, but I was going to try. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime all these pieces, and I'm sure a bunch of them are still going to need a lot of work, especially these legs, a little gouge there that I'm going to have to fill up with some primer, and yeah, there's a lot of rough spots. So this looks like it's going to take a few coats of primer and cleaning up, but we're getting there. Because what I had done was I had cemented all these pieces together so I can scribe out those lines to be able to panel line them. And this piece wasn't fitting all that well. Like there were really big gaps here and everything. So I just cemented it all together, and it's such a complex piece to cement together that it was quite difficult to get everything in place while it was drying. And yeah, so it looks like it's going to need a bit more cleanup. Alright, enough of that. Now I've given these parts a couple hours to dry. They could probably use a couple more, but I'm in a hurry to get this done, or mostly done tonight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to sand these pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come through with a very smooth sandpaper. This is like 12,000 grit. This is like 3,000-ish. And I'm going to go through and just smooth out these pieces even more. The primer I use is very smooth. It's Mr. Primer Surfacer 1000, but a lot of times these pieces have little indents and stuff from where the pegs are. I'm sure you guys can see it on your own pieces where there's like little circles that are recessed and stuff. And also a lot of times the primer won't go on perfectly smooth. I might get like a little splatter here and there. So sanding is going to smooth both of those issues out. And another issue is usually around seam lines. Often they're not perfect the first time, so what I usually do is I put a really thick layer of primer on where there was a seam line. I want to come back and sand it smooth. That's why I do this. It's an extra step, but it really makes the pieces perfectly smooth. So how I usually do this is I use these buffing blocks, usually sometimes step 3 if it really needs it, and most of the time step 4. But this particular kit has very few flat areas. Most Gundam kits are very square and they have very flat pieces, but fortunately this kit is very round, so I'll be using just normal sheets of sandpaper and just doing it by hand for most of these pieces. I've got 1,000 here and I've got 2,000 here, and I might even jump up to 3,000. I gotta try these out because these might be a little bit too rough, so we'll see how it goes. And what I usually do is I wet sand this so I don't clog up my sandpaper really quickly. I just keep a towel here, and so as I'm sanding I'll be cleaning off my sandpaper with the water and towel, and also be wiping down these pieces. Time to get started. And there we go. This piece looks like a tooth. But anyways, if I were to sand through these pieces, like you can see some exposed blue, if there's a lot of that, I'd reprime it and just do that step again. But small little exposed parts like that, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. Alright, so I finished that. Took probably an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half. Quite a bit of time. So over here we got a good example of the marks left by the pegs underneath. You can see that little mark there from the peg on the back side there. And yeah, just went around and sanded. When you do this, you just notice all these little spots that are not very good. Here we've got little indents in the plastic. If I knew I was going to prime all these parts again, I'd sand a bit harder and go through the primer on a lot of spots. Here's another little, and there's another little indent where a peg is. So you just kind of go through, smooth that out. Stuff you can't really do that easily before the parts are primed, just because you can't see it that well. And it takes a lot of sanding to get the piece sanded all the way down. So that's kind of why I do this. I'm going to go ahead and reprime a few of these pieces that were pretty bad, like the legs obviously. I sanded down as much as I could and then puttied up a few spots, and I'm going to go ahead and prime it and see how it looks. Hopefully all it'll need is another quick sanding to kind of clean them up the best I can. To clean them up anymore, it requires filling in these lines again with some putty and then rescribing them, which just would really suck. I don't think I can make it any better, so hopefully another coat of primer will do it. And since I'm repriming those, I'll probably reprime a few other parts as well. So here's another piece that wasn't as smooth as it looked. You can see a few little spots that have been exposed that are just raised up higher than the rest. So I don't really need to reprime most of these parts. I just caught another spot that I'm going to go ahead and sand down a little bit more. It's a little ring here. I'm going to go ahead and sand that down a little bit. Since I'm going to be doing 2 coats of paint, I definitely don't need to prime these parts again, since that first coat of paint will be like the primer basically. Otherwise it wouldn't hurt to prime these parts again and then just redo it all. But it's another hour and a half of work that is hard to do when you can just move on without too much consequence. So I got these primed again and they're looking a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry for the night and then come back tomorrow and just sand them up a bit and smooth out some of the rough spots. But those should be good to go. I don't think I'm going to get any painting done tonight, but I can practice or test out my color scheme. Here are 2 colors that I think would work good as a base. So I'm going to go ahead and try those out. I've got 2 of each so that I can mix and match between my 2 primary colors, which I've already mixed up. It's hard to see what they look like because they're not actually mixed up right now, but yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and apply one of these stencils, which are pretty easy to do. And I missed a couple, so I'm going to go ahead and grab those. Cool. This is like the worst way to do it, but it doesn't really make a difference, so go ahead and apply that to that. Make sure it's firmly pressed down. And go ahead and do the same for the other ones. So I went ahead and did that. So I think I'm going to mix in a bit more white, quite a bit more white, to the light blue. This guy, just a little too sky bluish. And this one, I think I'm going to mix in a bit more blue. It's close, but I think I might mix in a little bit more blue. So let's peel these back and see how they look. So I certainly didn't do this right. I didn't give the paint enough time to fully dry before I did this. And I went on way too heavy. Looks okay. I'm liking that. But I like that on that. That looks cool. But I also like that. So you gotta imagine you'd be seeing just that across the whole kit. Both of those look pretty cool, but that one looks a lot better. And same sort of deal over here. I might try a few more colors just to see if I can't play around with them and fix up that color, make it a bit more what it's going for. But we're making progress, and I think that's all I'm going to do for tonight. So I'm going to get this video uploaded, and stay tuned for the next part, guys. Bye.